just over a year ago now, it felt like my whole world was crumbling and crashing down as I found out that my absolute world, my everything, my heart, my soul, my dog Polo, that I have started this whole page around, was diagnosed with mast cell cancer. And it was quite the journey to go through. So I figured I would tell the story on here of kind of how we found out that he had cancer and our experience with that, in hopes that maybe it could be helpful for someone else. We actually got a really wonderful message from someone that heard Polo's story before, and they were actually able to find out that their dog also had mast cell cancer, but they were able to catch it really early because of our content, which is just crazy and amazing. And I'm really glad for them that they were able to get on top of that right away and take action. So maybe this can help someone else as well, or if you have experienced something similar and your dog has had cancer, maybe this can just help you to not feel so alone. Unfortunately, canine cancer is far too common and it's just such a horrible thing. So I thought that I'd bring everyone along while I did my makeup and got ready for the day so that I could have kind of a bit of a distraction for my own personal self so that I didn't get too emotional, because it's definitely something that's difficult for me to talk about. But yeah, I'll get right into it. So Polo's cancer story all started a while back. He all of a sudden came in from outside one day and I noticed a bit of a lump on the top of his head, and I showed it to my dad and my sister and they were like, oh yeah, we haven't seen that before. It's so weird. But it didn't seem to bother him at all. He wasn't acting any differently or anything like that. So I took a photo of it and I called up our vet and I sent in the photo, and it was towards the end of the day. So they were closing for the day. Told me that it could be a number of things, but if it wasn't bothering him right then and there, they suggested to give him some Benadryl. And they said that if it got worse within the next few hours, to take him to the ER. If it got better, that was a good sign and we could hold out. And if it kind of stayed the same and it stuck around, that they would get him in the next morning to look at it. And so we were kind of thinking that maybe it had been like a bug bite or something, a little bit of an irritation since he had just, been outside. And I wasn't super worried about it. I gave him the Benadryl, and by the next morning, it seemed to go away. Nothing got worse. So I kind of just wrote it off in my head that it must have been a little bug bite, and the Benadryl helped the swelling to go down, and now he was better. Didn't really cross my mind again. And then probably months later, at some point, the bump came back. I don't think I really realized that it was in the exact same spot. Kind of thought that Polo must have gotten a little bug bite, that he was a little bit sensitive. I think I probably gave him a Benadryl again. It went away, no big deal. Now, in between this time, we switched vets just because we moved and this location was a bit closer to us for no other reason really other than that. And basically, I am starting to continuously see this lump appearing on the top of his head, realizing that it seems to be in the same place, around the same size. It never really changed in size or shape that I noticed, but the thing that was odd about it is it would always go away. Usually in probably a period of 24 hours, it would be gone. And so that is the part that seemed to have me partly and everyone around me not super concerned, because I think it's really ingrained in people that if something is wrong, it's going to change shape, it's going to get larger, and it's not going to go away. It's going to stay and progress and get worse. And all throughout this time, everything seems to be normal with Polo, and he seems to be healthy and doing well. And basically, it just got to the point that I was concerned about it, and so I mentioned it to the vet, and they said they didn't think it was a big deal, probably allergic reaction type of thing, not to stress, and that he didn't need to be seen. And then I brought him in for his physical. They saw him. The lump wasn't present that day. I told them about it, showed them the area. They felt around, didn't feel anything, and still they weren't concerned about it. As time progressed, I just had a bad feeling about it. So again, took pictures, sent it in to our new vet, letting them know I was really concerned about it and just really wanted to make sure it wasn't anything. And I just continued to get reassured by them over and over again that this was nothing and that he did not need to be seen and that they were not at all concerned about it. And so at this point, everyone around me is telling me, like, Molly, you're being kind of crazy about this. Like, the vet has told you over and over again, it's nothing to worry about. And if it was, it would be progressing, all of these things. And so, you start to kind of convince yourself, I think too, that it must be fine. And that's what everyone around you thinks. And that's what the professional is telling you that you want to trust. But it just kept bothering me and I really didn't feel good about it. And so one day I was talking to my mom and I'm like, I am getting him seen and I am getting this area tested because I don't feel good about it. And so we called and kind of had to force our way into getting an appointment. And I'm like, I don't want them to just look at it because they're going to tell me the same thing they've been telling me, which is that it's nothing. I want some sort of test done. I didn't even have the education at the time to know how they tested something like that or what they did, but I was like, I want something physically done. And that way I can just be at peace and I can know and shut my mind off. But right now I need that peace of mind and it's worth it to pay the money, get the test, get the appointment just so that I can have that peace of mind. And even though this was something that was nagging at me continuously, I do think that part of me thought that this appointment was going to be just to reassure myself and just to know that I did the right thing and everything was good. But I kind of did think that everything probably would be okay. The beginning of February, we got him an appointment to go in and get it tested. We had one of our first travel partnerships right before that in Texas that we took our dog Josie to, so it was really exciting. We weren't able to get in before that, so we got the appointment after, and we were away, and so it was a good distraction leading up to this appointment. And I had my mom go with me because I was just nervous about it. I guess I must have sensed that there probably wasn't going to be good news and I wanted the support. So we were coming from different areas. She was coming from her house. And so we drove separately, but she agreed to meet me there and just go. And she was actually telling me on the car ride, like, Molly, I'm happy to do this and support you, but you can't keep being crazy about this, because I can be crazy. I'll admit it. Like, I am a helicopter dog mom. I get obsessive and nervous and paranoid, and she's like, we're gonna do this, but you need to learn from this, and enough is enough. And my mom, those of you that have seen, who travels with me and works with me, and she's extremely supportive and wonderful. We have a great relationship. So she didn't mean this in like a super mean way, but you know, was driving a long way to go to this appointment, and we get there and they looked at it, and I think it did happen to be kind of present that day, and they did the aspiration test, and they still didn't really seem concerned about it. They were like, do you really want to aspirate it? I was like, yes, absolutely, that's our option. And they went to do it and they couldn't get anything to come out of it, which was a bit odd, and I don't think was really concerning at that point, but just, you know, odd. So I think they waited a little bit, like got a bigger needle, tried again. They got a little bit out, but didn't really get a good sample. They had to get an even bigger needle. And the third time, I think they were able to get some sort of something to come out of it. We waited at the vet for them to give us the results of, you know, from looking at it on the microscope. And I remember that it kind of took a while that we were waiting there. And at this point, not thinking a ton of it until the vet came back in the room and she told us that it was kind of weird because she couldn't get a real clear definitive answer. Like, she didn't clearly see mast cells, but she definitely saw some cells that she didn't like and that she thought could potentially be concerning. So of course in that moment my heart dropped, not quite as much as it was going to, because I still didn't really understand. We kind of thought, okay, some cells you don't like maybe, but she explained further that she thought there could be some mast cells, which would mean that Polo had mast cell cancer. She showed us a scan of another dog and how the difference between Polo's scan and kind of how you could see very clearly in that dog and how Polo's you couldn't really tell. So the next step was to send the sample to the lab and wait for the more official results, which I think was like 7 to 10 business days. And at that point, that was horrible to have to wait for that news. I drove home and sobbed, and just obviously was not in a good place, and just hoped that this was all going to be for nothing and that we were going to get good news. Of course, just as luck would have it, we did not get the sample results on the earlier side of things. When it hit like the 7-day period, we kept calling and confirming and just wanting to make sure that, you know, we didn't miss anything. But it took the full 10 business days, and I think this was on like a Friday, so it was almost like 2 weeks later that we got the results that were inconclusive. After speaking further with our vet and the lab, basically because of the way that I guess his results were, they decided to treat it as if it were mast cell cancer. The next step would kind of usually be to biopsy it, I guess. But then if that came back and he had to get surgery and get put under, and then that came back as cancer, then he would have to go through another surgery to have the whole mass removed and take margins around the mass to see if the cancer's spread, all of that. So they decided to treat it as cancer and schedule him for surgery to have the mass removed, as well as to take really, really wide, deep margins to really know what we were dealing with. So the next step, which wasn't easy either, was to spend all sorts of time calling different surgeons. We had a few in mind that we preferred to go to based on, you know, their reputation. Obviously, we right away were like, who's the best? Like, we want the best. We want whoever's going to do the most successful job. And a lot of places had appointments that were months and months out, which we were not willing to wait that long. One, just our emotions couldn't handle it. And then obviously we didn't think it was a good idea to have Polo wait even longer to have this potential cancer grow and spread and worse things happen. We're able to get a consultation with a surgeon, and they had us out for surgery a couple of weeks after, but they did say that they had a cancellation list that they could get us on and potentially get him in for surgery the same week if they were to have a cancellation. So we waited. More waiting for the consultation appointment, and then that came around, and thank goodness we were able to get on the cancellation, or someone did cancel, so we were able to get him in. So we didn't really have a lot of time to prepare emotionally for him to have the surgery. It was the next morning after the consultation, which we didn't know. We got a call maybe 6 o'clock the night before. And taking him in that day was hard, of course. It's, a surgery that isn't, I don't think, super high risk or anything, but there are risks involved with dogs going under anesthesia and getting surgery. One concern was the location of it, because it was on his head. There's not really a lot of extra skin there versus on a lot of other places on the body. So they were worried potentially about closing the incision with the wide margins that they were gonna have to take that were huge. And so they were worried about closing it up. And they said that there was some potential that he may need like skin grafts to close it. That was kind of the main potential concern. We were lucky because certain spots that dogs can have these tumors, they're not able to operate on. If it's like the ear or leg can be tricky, and sometimes they have to amputate the leg because they can't get those wide margins, obviously. So it was an operable area, which was good. They ended up going down right to the skull. They could have gone a little further, but they didn't want to have to take a piece of his skull to do so. So they opted to not do that, which is just crazy to think about. Thankfully, his surgery seemed to go well. And then we were back for another period of waiting. I think it was another 7 to 10 days or 10 to 14 business days. Polo's recovery was definitely a lot harder than we expected. We didn't really feel like we were fully briefed on how difficult it would be. It kind of seemed to be just that he had to wear a cone. He couldn't jump up on furniture or things like that. And he had to go outside on a leash, so he couldn't be running around or super active. And we had to be careful because the incision was especially tight, like I said, due to where it was on his head, of him not pulling it or not bumping into anything. So he was given a massive, massive cone that was probably 3 sizes too big for him. But to really get that width and distance away from his head, which made it really difficult for him to get around, get comfortable. He also was just very, very out of it, and in pain and confused. He would just wake up in the night whimpering and looking around, and he was just very stressed and out of it. And it was really heartbreaking to see him like that. Ended up, getting him a little something to take the edge off, which still, even with that, was up all through the night with him. Every couple of hours, we moved the mattress from my bed onto the floor so that he could sleep with me. He could not fit in his crate at all or move around because of how big the cone was. So someone had to be with him 24/7, monitoring him. And it was just a difficult time, and it was difficult to see him like that and see him struggling so much with it. But we got through those days, lots of tears. I would just have random breakdowns throughout the day that we were going to lose him. And all this time, in case I didn't mention, we're waiting not only to find out for sure if it was mast cell cancer, but we were also waiting to find out if it was fast growing or slow growing and what grade of cancer, to know what our next steps would be. And so there was kind of a big range where it could be that they thought they got it all and he was good, or that he didn't even have cancer all along, to he could have very limited amount of time left to live and that there was just nothing that could really be done. So there were a lot of potential outcomes and a lot of tears were shed. My whole family was just a mess and not really doing well, and all trying to lean on each other for support, but at the same time, we all were just equally struggling as much with this. And eventually we did get the call. He did have mast cell cancer. It was thankfully slow growing and a lower grade. They believed that likely they were able to get it all, so we did not have to go forward with chemo or radiation, which was amazing news. He has since then had to go regularly to be checked to make sure that everything kind of seems to stay the same. And if new lumps have come up or things like that, he did over the summer have one lump on his back that we had aspirated. Our wonderful vet, that is our original vet that I started the story with, that we switched back to after all of this, was able to get him in within like a couple hours of us calling in, so we could get it aspirated right away. Well, it was clear and easy to find. Thankfully, it turned out to be nothing and never popped up again since. But we just go forward hoping for the best and that nothing changes and that he does not get new mass that appear. That can be common, I guess, to have it pop up now in different spots. But we are very grateful for the outcome that we had, and so thankful to still have Polo and to be telling this story with still having Polo almost a year later. I cannot stress enough how important to advocate for your dogs. You know your dog the best out of anyone, and you have to go with your gut. If you think something's wrong, speak up, stand up for your dog. If I had not pushed to get this appointment and get it aspirated, we may be having a very different chat right now, and Polo might not be with us anymore. So if this experience has taught me anything, it's that. I can't stress it enough. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Getting that original aspiration test is not a big deal. Your dog's awake. They just put a little needle in and pull a little something out and look at it under a microscope. So it's really not a huge deal for your dog. The medical lingo and all of that is not my strong point. But basically this cancer is kind of similar to like how allergies would show up, and that something would kind of flare up and, you know, you can see it and then it goes back down. So his mass was always there, but at certain points, you know, it would kind of like activate or swell or whatever, and that's why we would be able to see it. And then it would go completely flat, like to the point that vets couldn't find it at all. And that is common with mast cell cancer. So something very good to note, that cancer does not automatically stay visible and get worse and change over time. It can come and go, or appear to. And like I said, never changed size or anything like that. Now that I have finished up my makeup, I am a little bit more in my feels about this. It's still very emotional. We kind of really pulled back with certain social media stuff and with working with brands for a while there. in 2025, I just was not the same, and really still am not to this day, I don't think, honestly. And it's still something that I worry about him, even though we were so lucky, to get good news and things like that. Definitely, changed me and makes you look at life differently. While I really, appreciate him more than ever, it's just difficult. I don't really know how to explain it. If any of you can relate or have had dogs that have gone through a similar experience, you probably know what I'm talking about. But I hope that Polo's story can help to educate other people, or if unfortunately you can relate and you've gone through this, know that you're not alone in it. I was really lucky to have an amazing friend whose dog has gone through, and it still has, mast cell cancer, and she has done an amazing job advocating for him and helping him with his care. His is terminal, unfortunately, but she has exceeded expectations for how long he should have had to live, and just done an amazing job. And she was a great support to have throughout this experience. And this whole experience changed me too, because I just realized how much of myself I have put into this dog, and how much of my identity is in this dog, with this being my career and a lot of my social life. I have so many friends in this industry and in the dog world, and obviously it's a hobby, it's something fun I like to do, and fun things I like to do with him. And I think that's what's really motivated me to really push through with some rescue work this past year and really dedicate myself to fostering. Because something that we talked about, me and my mom, when Polo was going through this, is like, I kept saying, like, what am I gonna do if we lose him? Like, I don't know how I will ever be able to move on or distract myself. And we talked about how maybe in Polo's honor, we would start a very small rescue. And that's one of the things that kind of got me through it, just having that little idea in my head, and something to honor my special rescue dog. Now I'm getting emotional. But I think it's really important to me to have Polo have this amazing legacy. And I don't want to wait until he's gone to do that. So I've been working hard to, give back and build this amazing Polo the Pitty legacy for him, even though he's still with us, that he can be part of something bigger forever, because he's so deserving of that. And I know that's what he would want. I know now I'm just starting to ramble and get emotional, so I'm going to probably stop there for today. And I can always do a part 2 of things that I'm probably forgetting right now. Or if any of you have any questions, feel free to please leave them in the comment section below. And no question is a dumb question. I didn't really know anything about this when we were starting on our experience, and I still probably don't know nearly as much as many people do. But I appreciate you all listening this far to me ramble on. Like I said, I just hope that this can be helpful for someone. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day or night, wherever you are.